Morning, Mark. How are you?
Very good, Brad. How are you?
Excellent, thank you, mate. Super stoked to have you on the show. It's we only met just recently, and we're doing some stuff together with Log Me In, and I'm so stoked you can come on and share your experience, what's going on in your life at the moment, like with our listeners on board. So let's jam, hey?
I'm sure what's going on in my life will be exactly the same as everybody else. It's been pretty hectic, eh?
It has, hasn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, what's been the most hectic thing for you going through what we're actually all experiencing right now?
Um, I think it's a change. So I came on board about a year ago onto into Log Me In from another software vendor, and had all these sort of plans, sort of September, October time last year, and just being hit by something that it just came out of the blue in many ways. I think we get to sort of March and it's just the whole world changes. I had a guy working for me who managed to get into the country before they locked the borders down 6 hours before, literally 6 hours before they shut everything down. So that happened. I mean, in this time, our company has gone from being a publicly listed company to very, very shortly being a private entity. So there's a lot that's happened in the last sort of 11, 12 months. And then with COVID piled on top of that as well, it's just been absolutely crazy. And I think, you know, from my perspective, as an organization, I just appear to be in, you know, all the seriousness aside with COVID, it's been absolutely horrific. But from a technology perspective, we seem to be right in the crosshairs of being able to provide technology to end customers that is the right tech at the right time. Basically, we're a work from anywhere company in everything that we do, whether that's unified comms, collaboration, customer engagement solutions, or remote security. So sort of specialize in those areas. It's very much it is very much a work from anywhere company. So, we've got to be seen to be sort of drinking our own champagne as well, right?
Exactly, mate. Exactly. I mean, you speak of so much change, and like there has been at so many different levels in terms of macro levels in businesses, in terms of countries, governments, all sorts of change. And then there's like the impact that each of us as individuals have experienced as part of these groups or companies. And it's like, how do you actually respond to the change? And I noticed for myself that the reward system, my daily, as I go about my day or my week or my life or the month, there's the work time and there's the reward time. The reward is to go for a surf or go play golf or catch up with friends or spend time with my kids. And I've noticed the biggest shift for me personally is going through all this, how our reward system has changed so much. You're still trying to find meaning in every single day to be productive, add value, and also continue to exist and live as a happy, fulfilled human being to an extent, right? So I don't know what's changed for you in terms of like reward systems, I guess, in your life personally. Curious to hear.
I'll be honest, I think it's a bit of a mess, and it's something that I probably need.
Love your honesty, mate.
It's something that I need to keep my finger on, actually, because I think you have historically I don't want to talk about the new norm or use any of these terms, these
Yeah.
open terms, but in the old norm,
Yeah.
people had a structure of some sort, right? So people would probably have a place to go to in terms of work. If they weren't working from home. I mean, I've had a bit of a mixture, like yourself, throughout my career. Working from home, working in an office environment. I think when you have that structure in place, you've also got your sort of family and your friends and your sort of support network around you, and you do things that are in a sort of a structured manner, and you sort of Monday to Sunday, and you've got your plan. And I think this has thrown things out massively. One of the benefits, I think, of that have come out of this situation, in terms of people having to work remotely and having to think outside the box, is just the fact that it cuts down commute times. People have theoretically got a couple of extra hours in their day, and I think that probably helps people. Certainly, people that are living in and around, large cities, Melbourne City, for example, that live out, an hour's drive, for example, from their place of work. I think the technology has been there for 10, 20 years. To be honest, it's been there for a long time. But I think
Sure has. Yeah.
there has to be a shift in mentality, and it's a human shift in terms, and it has to be driven from the top down. It's driven from leadership in terms of embracing the technology that's been there for a long time and actually using that to your advantage for your business and for your employees as well, and also for their mental health, to be honest.
Mm. Mm. I mean, like when you talk about that, embracing the tech that's there, it's been around for like 10 years, you know, like I know personally myself, I've been working remotely for 3 or 4 years, you could say. And, you know, like with the forced innovation that everybody's having to go through right now, it's creating so much opportunity. And like you said, like, you know, the 2 hours per day of people commuting that they get put back in their back pocket, like kind of like, how do you spend that? How do you spend that the best way at the moment? Like, it is extra time, and are we using it for good, or are we using it not to gain, you know, like it's kind of like, great, you got some extra time in your day, what are you going to do with it?
I can tell you anecdotally that I've never done so many video calls in my life as you can imagine.
You're getting good at them.
Yeah, and in all seriousness, I think that time, you know, where you'd prep for work and you'd been on public transport and driven to work or whatever it would be, it's being filled up actually from a working perspective, from a productivity perspective. We've certainly seen in our organisation a productivity gain and a productivity increase by doing this, because, you know, it's sort of dead time when people are getting ready for work and traveling to work and traveling back from work. There's also, you know, I don't want to sound too sort of, you know, work centric and draconian here, but there's also the thing of, you know, the social aspect, right, which is really, really important in a work environment. What you often found was people were talking at the, you know, the water cooler conversation, going out for lunches, and you're getting interrupted every 5 minutes at your desk. You know, there's good and bad there, you know, depending on what your thoughts are. I'm a massively social person, so I like the social interaction. So sort of working from home for, I think that's fairly obvious. Working from home for, you know, every single day for the last sort of however long it's been, 6 months, whatever it's been, it's taken its toll. And I do miss that sort of social interaction. But what you're finding is, as a result, people are actually more productive. I mean, I'm on back-to-back video calls. I mean, you know, today is a classic example. You know, 7 till 9, and you know, without trying to play the martyr, it sort of does start to take its toll, I think.
Sure.
Your original point, it's really important that you use that you block out time in your diary actually to make sure that you get exercise in, you get time in with your family, time in with your kids, you get time in with your friends. You know, I think you have to sort of you have to rejig what was the old norm, and then try to keep your finger on the pulse in terms of how you spend time as a human being on a personal note. You know, with friends, family, with loved ones, and doing the things that you want to do that, you know, that make you feel good, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, 100%. And it's like, you know, that recharge time you speak about, or making a conscious effort to actually have the time to actually reboot, recharge, get re-energized. Like you're an outgoing social guy, right? And your energy recharges when you're spending a lot of time with people. Do you know what I mean? And then when you go back to back into your home, it's kind of like, okay, chill out, regroup, do my work, hang out with the family. But then I want to go speak to people again and get recharged and get energized. And so, yeah, I feel sorry for all the extroverts. I felt sorry for all the extroverts in the past 6 months, mate.
Well, you know, in all seriousness, there's, I mean, I don't know the details in front of me, but chatting to somebody internally, there's apparently some evidence out there that, you know, from a mental health perspective, it's impacting people in ways that maybe we didn't expect it to impact people. You know, I feel a lot of it's through isolation as well. It's really just the whole COVID thing's really hit us, you know, isolating people, closing down borders, all that stuff. It's great that we've got the tech and businesses can keep running. People can keep communicating, and, you know, thank God that we've got the technology to do that. But it does take its toll. From a you know, on a personal note, my parents had contracted COVID about 4 months ago, and they're overseas. So thank God for the technology. That's all I've got to say. It was a pretty emotional time with one parent, you know, couldn't get out of bed for 3 weeks, the other one in hospital. It was pretty serious, and it was just great knowing that, you know, unlike sort of 40 or 50 years ago when someone would have to get a boat, or someone had to send a telegram, or if you're lucky, you could pick up the phone. If you were very lucky, you know, the reality is now that we have the technology at our fingertips to see people, to talk to people, to interact with people. and that was important to me, knowing that just click of a button, I could go and talk to my parents to see how they were. So it's taken its toll, I think, on a lot of people, this whole thing.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for your transparency and openness and vulnerability on that. And how are they traveling now? How are they going?
Yeah, they're good. They're good. They're
Good.
much better. I think it's sort of it's got a lingering effect. I mean, they're a little bit tired. It's been a few months since I recovered, but yeah, it's pretty full on. It's pretty full when it hits you. You see this stuff and people talk about it and joke about it. But and you guys know about this in Melbourne. Like the statistics in Melbourne have been pretty bad recently, and it's scary. And I think when you see it firsthand, my brother's other half is a nurse in Melbourne, and so she's seen it sort of firsthand on the front line over the last 4 or 5 weeks, and it's a pretty scary thing. So, I guess stay safe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So on that front, so like you said, you're in Sydney, right, mate? That's where you're working from each day. Yeah. So you've been country manager at Log Me In for how long now? A little while?
Yeah, so I had a channel up for Log Me In for APAC, primarily for the UCC business, but we've got a whole of portfolio play. So we specialize in, as I mentioned before, comms and collaboration, customer engagement solutions. So things like chatbots, to do a solution called Bolt 360, which is essentially a chatbot or AI for sort of contact center environments. And also in the security space as well. So there's a product called LastPass, which a lot of people use. I think there's a freemium version of it. Password management and multi-factor authentication. That's another area that we specialize in. So, it's the most sort of surreal thing. I've worked across, number of software vendors, particularly the UCC space, contact center and analytics space. And I can honestly say this is like a once in a lifetime event, like the black swan event in many ways. And it's just crazy from my perspective because, I've come to this company and all of a sudden the software that we sell is absolutely relevant to organizations. And we've seen that since sort of March, when it's really kicked off. And if I just sort of drill down into that, it was sort of interesting what we were seeing. So we offer, as I mentioned, there's 3 distinct business units. If I look at what people needed sort of when what I call the great migration happened, when people were forced to move from a work environment to a home environment or a remote working environment, what I noticed, there was a big uplift in software that we offer around remote support and remote working. So it was almost as though people have made this decision to move their staff to work from home. And what is the first thing that IT think of? Right, how do we keep these guys up and running? How can I support them remotely? And how can I support our servers? So that whole sort of remote support for users, and also sort of at the asset management piece, basically for end devices and for servers. And that's the first thing that we saw with our Rescue and Central products. The second thing as well, which is quite interesting, was we offer a webinar product called GoToWebinar, which is, I think it's sort of ubiquitous in that webinar space. It's been around for a long time. Usually for sort of enterprises, it sort of scales up to a couple of thousand, users on the bridge. We saw a massive uplift, like 300% uplift in that around the same time. And I think it was because a lot of organizations, a lot of sort of mid-tier and large organizations that were moving people to home, they needed to communicate every week and every month with their staff members. They were using GoToWebinar for their town halls, basically. So we saw this massive spike in webinar. And then off the back of that, obviously things like, we're talking now over a video conferencing platform. We saw a huge uplift in our meeting products as well. But as people have sort of gotten used to this, I don't want to use the term a new normal. I
love that. I love that you make a conscious effort not to use the jargon and the diary and the narrative that's coming out. I'm exactly the same.
Awful.
Good.
With the change that we're seeing. With the change that we're seeing, we've seen sort of interesting trends in our organisation. We're very much a barometer from a tech perspective in terms of what people are thinking and what they're planning for. So as I mentioned, it was the making sure that people are up and running with the remote work kits that we offered. Then it was the sort of webinar piece as well to keep keep organisations communicating internally. What we're now seeing as people are sort of getting used to this is there's been a massive uptick in interest around two things. Unified communications in terms of voice and video as a service. So people are starting to realize they may not be getting back to the office for a while. They've got existing customer premise equipment. They've got, sort of, I guess, for example, a telephone system or existing video or conferencing platform. And they're moving. I've seen a sizable uptick over the last sort of 6 weeks. They're moving and into that sort of remote working, unified communications as a service type model where people are looking at consumption models. They're trying to reduce costs. They're trying to sort of pare back their capex costs. Anything that is unwanted spending, what you're seeing is people starting to move into that consumption model more and more and realize that this is probably for the long term and they need a cloud-based solution basically to communicate and to collaborate. So we're starting to see a lot of that as well. The other piece that I mentioned was LastPass. So you've had all these things that have happened on this curve, and then all of a sudden people are going, right, security is actually a big issue. How do we address that? One of the interesting numbers that I heard somewhere was that 80% of verifiable data breaches actually are a result of essentially shonky passwords. So LastPass, with us offering that and our password management solution, we've had a sizable uptick there in terms of wanting to make sure that end users are secure and their devices are secure. So there's a sort of a story there as well.
So do you think there's a trend at the moment where people are going, okay, this has happened, this change has happened, and then they're going to the first kind of option available to them? They're not really thinking cognitively around, all right, our business is here, we're on a growth journey, we want to continue to scale and continue to expand, reduce operation costs, improve productivity, whilst also managing the personnel, the people, like the hearts and souls of the business. Are organisations acting hastily, or are they taking their time and carefully considering the benefits and the value of the products on the marketplace? What are you seeing in that space?
I think from a UC perspective, I think they're taking their time. I think a lot of organisations have come to the conclusion that maybe this might actually be, I wouldn't say a long-term thing, but I think what's happened here is there is a technological change that was happening in the past 5 or 10 years anyway. And I think this is just accelerating. What COVID has been this inflection point where it's just this pandemic has accelerated that technological change. So I think we're seeing more and more of it. I think people are still sort of taking their time. I think the key thing is make sure that companies are up and running and they can still transact, they can still go about their day-to-day business. And I'm just thinking selfishly about people that work in offices and people do jobs like ourselves, I guess. I'm not talking about frontline workers that have sort of really sort of got the brunt of COVID. Your professional services types environments, your office-bound businesses, which in sort of Melbourne and Sydney probably makes up, including the public sector, maybe 70 or 80% of the workforce. So I think people are looking at it, and I think there's a bit of thought that's going into it. I have a feeling that it's probably going to be a medium-term thing, and it just gives people a little bit of time to work out what do they need to do in terms of their comms and their collaboration. How are they currently working? If you look at where this is impacting the economy, I certainly wouldn't want to be, for example, in the commercial real estate space right now.
No, that's right. That's right.
So I think it's a case of how we use the technology, for organizations so they can keep up and running, that employees are engaged, companies are engaged with their customers, they can measure, they can manage, they have all the analytics that they need. So theoretically, that those bums on seats that were sitting in a specific given geography or given location, they're sporadic workers. There's no reason why they can't work from home if the business model fits that narrative, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we're going to see a trend, aren't we? Where the workforce per se will be a blend of remote working and also on-prem or on-site, and it'll be interesting to see what what it balances out to be in the long term. Because I mean, everyone right now, we're all at home, right, or working remotely. But 6 to 12 months ago, we're kind of like 90% of us were on site present, and now we're all at home. So it'll be interesting to see how much time it takes and what the blend ends up being as we move back. And then what you were talking about, the commercial real estate side of things, the impact of that, like shopping centers, and like, will we use shopping centers in a different way? Will it be smaller? Will there be these little windows? Will we be doing our ordering online and our purchasing online and not walking in for that experience? Do you know what I mean? Like, these are all the changes. It's
I just on that piece, women seem to be very versed in, from what I've seen anyway, from shopping online already. It's pretty new to me, I'll be honest. And I don't enjoy it as much. I don't particularly like shopping at the best of times, but yeah.
There might be some blokes in your corner as well, mate.
I think it's pros and cons. And just to hit on a point there around what this will look like moving forward. Well, no one's got a crystal ball. We've got the tech. There's been an acceleration of these trends anyway. It was always sort of going to come to a head at some point. I think there was going to be an inflection point in terms of, looking after your workforce and looking after their mental health and all that sort of stuff. Are they happy working from, giving them the flexibility basically? Are they happy working from home, working from the office? What is that middle ground? I've got some numbers. So as an organisation, there's about 4,000 people that work at Log Me In, and we basically surveyed the workforce and sort of to give people a voice. To give all of us a voice in terms of what we would like to see moving forward. Now, bearing in mind we're a tech company that specialises in this work from anywhere space, we thought, there's a really, really good cohort of people here that we could actually survey, our own workforce, just to ask them, what does this look like for you? What are you happy with moving forward? And what do you want to see? And interestingly, there was, I think it was 68% of people that responded said that they want flexibility. So flexibility was the word. I was like, okay, so it wasn't, I want to work from home. It wasn't, I want to go back to the office. 2/3 of people actually, specifically said that they want some flexibility. They want freedom basically to be able to, go to the office when they want to go to the office, work from home when they need to work from home. As an organisation, we are not going back. We've been told we're not going to go back to the way that we were working. We're certainly, no one's going back to the office globally for us until at least January, at least. And after that point, it's going to look pretty different as well, I think, with social distancing. You may find 1/3 of the workforce at any one stage might be in the office, for example. So things are changing. We've listened to the staff. 2/3 of them have basically said, including myself, said, just want flexibility. We can do our job anywhere. We can do it theoretically on any device, and we can do it securely. So, it shouldn't matter where I work from.
It's launching Techtify in COVID it's been really interesting, mate. And it's, we've got a cross section of different people at different ages, different locations, different experiences, all coming together for the first time. And I've got to say, our first monthly team meeting was fascinating. Where there was more introductions than content spoken about from the business. However, it's been a real journey in terms of learning how people want to work with it all and the flexibility around it and what time people are more active and productive than other people. And we're definitely gone away from the 9 to 5 stereotype that's been going on in Australia for forever kind of thing. And I mean, it's still there to an extent, but it's shifting more and more. I can't personally work 9 to 5 anymore. I work when I want to work for as long as I want to work with who I want to work with and build the lifestyle out around that,
I might just turn that back on you then. Brad, how you started Techtify? So how's it going for you?
Yeah, look, it's been really challenging, fun, exciting, new. For me personally, going back into tech after having 3 years out of it was something that I definitely had some sort of insecurity around personally. So that was been, would I enjoy it as much? Would I be willing to work like the amount of hours that I used to work in tech? And I've loved every single minute of it. One of the challenges definitely would be, working with different people in the team and like I said, different personalities, working at different times, and the opportunities that have come up because of that have been fantastic. And then it's kind of like you're going down the path and going down the road, and you're using the tools and the resources you've got available to you to create a brand and promote a brand and stand for something, positioning, and we're kind of building and developing that as we go. So I think I think this is like week 12 or week 13 of the business being live to the market, and we've won 4 new clients. We've done about 80K worth of revenue. What's been really rewarding for me personally is to see it all manifest. But my background was so strong in that hardware and software supply, and so for me to see, I was placed a full-time candidate in a role with a listed company to work with you guys on a voice and video conferencing and data solution and save an organisation 30-40% over a 2-year contract, whilst adding expanded functionality and value from a product that we put forward. To me, that is super, super, super rewarding. It's like, oh, okay, we had this idea, and then we started bringing it together, and then you take all the actions, and then it's like, oh shit, is this going to happen? Is it? And then it starts manifesting. You go, you little ripper. So that's kind of been my journey with it all, and it's been fantastic. And I guess this is the beauty of it, right? I said it at my 40th birthday. It's not about me, it's about we, and I definitely made a commitment to that. And I think through launching the business during these times, I've personally really had to embrace tech, and I've really had to embrace remote working, which I'd prefer to walk up to somebody and have a chat, right? And then walk away without having to like press a button to talk to somebody about something we need to work on. So these are all the little challenges that have come up. But, to be where we are, I think is a testament not only to the hard work of our internal team, the way we communicate, but all the partners and the vendors and the businesses that we work with, like whether or not you're a client or a supplier like yourself and vendor, some of the stuff we're doing, I think, it feels like we've got a little virtual community going. So that's how we've been going. That's how I've been going with it. So pretty stoked to be truthful.
Well, they say that, look, out of adversity, comes opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Famous saying. So it's great that you've set this business up during the period. There's no doubt that you'll come on leaps and bounds as well. I mean, anyone that can survive this, I think it's a great platform.
Definitely. So, mate, tell me, so types of organisations you're working with at the moment, what are some of the challenges you're seeing with like teams and people, and also, business demands, and like, how do you think the workforce, how do you think that, what do you think personally around if you're leading an organisation and there's these challenges with people working remotely and corporate outcomes and business outcomes, what do you bring to that? What would you say? How do we need to manage it? You touched on a couple of times mental health, but what are your beliefs around, tech, platform, communication, people as we're going through this change?
I think, directors in businesses and business owners, I think they've got a sort of a duty of care to a point to their employees. At the same time, you've got to balance that out with, you're running a business. We live in a capitalist economy. You're running a business, and business needs to be successful. So I think it's a really fine balance between, I guess how the way that I like to broach this, I've always done the same, making money with a smile on your face. I think it's how I'd like to broach that. I think there are challenges there. You've got to find a way where you can continue to be successful, keep your head above water, or whatever it is you do, whilst having a sort of finger on the pulse of the workforce as well. Because a happy workforce is a productive workforce. Workforce means that your business is going to be a healthy organisation, a healthy business. As I said, the technology is there. The technology is there to analyze. The technology is there to measure and to manage. So not just that sounding all very big brotherish. The technology is there to be deployed so people can do their jobs and do their jobs productively and efficiently. But there's nothing just because Joe or Sarah or whomever is not in the office and they're not within eyeshot. It doesn't mean that they're not productive. They're not getting through what they need to get through the day. And anecdotally, in our business, as I mentioned to you before, we are more productive now that we're working from home, to the point where our organisation over the last few months has given all employees globally 1 day off a month as a personal care day, because they can see just by looking at the analytics that people are they're just more productive. The amount of screen time, the amount of video calls, all that stuff is there. It can be measured and it can be managed. So, there's nothing stopping organizations from excelling during this period. It's not an excuse, particularly, as I said, in the sort of professional services space, or in that sort of office-bound type environments where you've got, legal, finance, sales-based businesses, anybody that sort of has bums on seats and are based in offices, architects, whomever. There's nothing stopping those organisations from excelling during, from a technological standpoint. By the way, I can't talk about the wider economy, but from a technological standpoint, there's nothing stopping people from working as effectively and as efficiently as they were when they were in the office. The technology is there to do it, and the analytics is there at the back end to support that as well. And when sort of productivity can be measured and it can be managed with the technology that we have in place these days as well.
Yeah. So with your suite of products, you talk about measurements and that type of thing. How's the LogMe and the GoToConnect suite of products, providing that data, providing that information to leadership, to teams, as they continue to manage their productivity? I'm curious to hear a little bit more about, the product set per se.
Well, sure. So the go-to portfolio, I guess. And some people a lot of people know the go-to portfolio through the.
It's been around forever. It's been around forever, hasn't it?
It has. Bear with me. Just close my window. It's very noisy. It's been around for a while. So that business actually came out of the Citrix. It was an acquisition or a merger through Citrix 4 or 5 years back. So the go-to portfolio now includes GoToMeeting. So it's obviously a direct competitor of somebody else that's been in the news quite a lot recently. And you then have GoToWebinar, obviously for large sort of enterprise webinars that organizations would run with end users, customers, with their own internal workforce. Really good bit of kit. GoToWebinar. It's sort of in many ways it's sort of ubiquitous with that sort of concept of a webinar. It's been around for a long time. It does some pretty high tech things. So as I said, big uptick there from a GoToWebinar perspective. The area that we're focusing on, which is very much going to be a growth engine for us, and it's where we're getting a lot of interest over the last sort of 4 to 6 weeks, is GoToConnect. And GoToConnect is basically the GoToMeeting offering that we have. So 250 video participants on a secure platform. It takes that and it adds in the voice component as well. So basically it's a per user per month offering or license, where we offer a whole bunch of minutes, like local, national, international, mobile calls, plugged into a license that provides 150 odd PBX or telephony features that you would expect in a standard telephony environment that you'd have in your office, along with that video component as well. So we have the voice and the video piece. Off the back of that, we obviously have metrics that are driven out of that in terms of usage and so on and so forth. What we also do outside of the voice and video pieces, we play in that contact center space as well. So we're finding quite a lot of interest over the past, probably the last month actually, into that contact center space. So organizations that are coming to us asking for software that will allow them to manage and measure their agents, provide sort of an ACD type environment, provide some analytics around calls coming in, calls coming out, customer sentiment analysis, the ability to schedule their workforce from a workforce management perspective, an element of AI. So for example, what I've noticed, we're getting interest from retail organizations, to go back to your point about retail. What will retail look like moving forward? Well, I can tell you, this is not just anecdotal. I've seen it firsthand. One of the things that we offer, as I mentioned, was this chatbot, which generally sort of sits in a contact center type environment, or on a website. And it's sort of, I guess it makes agents more productive, or it can augment the agent experience, customer experience, when people are sort of through an omni-channel type environment where customers are calling in either directly or through a website with web chat. That's what we're seeing a sizable uptick in. So to your point around retail, there is a sizable interest in having sort of optimizing their website basically for web chat, which is one of obviously the areas that we specialize in. So I think you're going to see more and more online buying in that space. And I think that just on the anecdotal basis of what we're seeing around web chat, the amount of interest we're seeing through actually from some large retail houses in Australia as well, that are looking to optimize their website for web chat. So that's one of the things that we're seeing on the chatbot front. So it's really end to end. It's user experience, customer experience. You've got that chatbot that comes into that environment, and then across the top we offer that security layer. So basically utilizing LastPass in terms of password management. So we're seeing, as I said, a lot of customer experience or interest in that space in terms of being able to offer elastic, consumption-based models in the CX space. And the same goes for UC. People have started to realize, they're cottling onto the fact they're probably going to be working from home for some time. Best way to do that is basically to do it via video, and to still have that connectivity that you need, and still have all those features that you wanted from a telephony perspective. That's what we offer in that license, that Go to Connect license. So it's an all-in-one voice and video offering, basically in a user license per user per month.
Yeah, it's a fantastic model and a fantastic suite of products. And I didn't know about the chatbot stuff, but I'll definitely be talking to you, mate, about stuff for the Techtify website in terms of our storefront, and also that it's a beginning, right? Somebody's web page with a chat function is really the potential beginning of somebody's customer journey, right? So you needs to be tight, needs to be measured, needs to be connected. Mate, fantastic, fascinating. I've loved having you on the show, mate. I can't wait till we can have a beer. I reckon you'd be a ripping fella to go and have a beer with you. not that I drink as much these days as what I used to, but I reckon you'd be a cracking guy to go out and have a beer with, Mark, for sure. So, mate, I really appreciate you coming on, your openness, your vulnerability, obviously your level of expertise as well. Let's speak to the businesses as we just wrap up. If I'm a business owner, I've kind of like responded to the change. I've like been on the back foot a little bit. I'm now starting to think a little bit proactively about how I'm going to move forward with video conferencing and remote workforce. What are the 3 things that I need to be thinking about at this time as I'm moving forward in my business?
Stay close to your partner. So if you're working with partners, stay close to your partners. Partners are very much a trusted advisor, and they've got a direct line into vendors. They also help you in terms of that vendor management piece as well. Stay close to best of breed vendors as well, and sort of choose carefully from a vendor perspective. And it's easy for me to say that because we've got quite a breadth of portfolio, but it's just pick your vendors wisely. Stay close to your partners. Those are the 2 big things that I'd probably suggest. And then I think just embracing the change. As I mentioned, this technology change has been happening for some time, 10, 20 years. I think just embrace that inside your organization, and just know that the technology is there and that vendors are there to keep you guys productive and to keep you motoring on during what has been a pretty disruptive time.
Mate, great advice, great tips. Thanks again, mate. Looking forward to that beer. We'll catch you real soon. All right, Mark. Thanks for coming on the show.
Take care. See ya.
Thanks, buddy.
See you, mate.